This episode of Tales from the Backlog is supported by listeners like you. Some very cool people like Chris Nelson, the Top 3 Podcast Crew, Zulgeek, Colby Moyer, Eric Guess, Rick Firestone, Jill, Kieran, ZNA, Gilmer, Mikey Tabletop, Cupcake, Kyle, and many more have all gone to patreon.com/realdavejackson to kick me a few bucks and support what goes on the show. I appreciate all of you very much, and you, listener, can be just like them. If you head to patreon.com/realdavejackson, you will be my hero too. All right, on to the show. Hey everybody, my name is Dave Jackson, and you're listening to Tales from the Backlog, a video games review podcast where each week I'm usually joined by a guest to talk about a game we played, but today I am joined by 3 wonderful guests to talk about Emergent gameplay. We're going to have a roundtable discussion on this break from the backlog. So first things first, let's introduce these guests. First up, returning guest on the show, Moonborn. Welcome back.
Hello there, happy to be back.
Yeah, good to have you back. Longtime listeners may recognize Moon from Death's Gambit, early days on the show, and the Bloodborne episode, which has become one of the more popular ones on the show. So Moonborn's back. Good to have you back, Moon. Joining us for the first time today is Alex from Please Don't Cast. Welcome, Alex.
Hello, happy to be here.
Yeah, good to talk to you, dude.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we're also joined by Nave from Gaming Together, returning to the show.
Howdy.
Good to have you back, Nave. And again, longtime listeners may remember Nave from the episode about Unsighted that we did, which was a good time. So today we're going to be talking about Emergent gameplay, like I said. But before we get into that, all 3 of my guests do wonderful stuff across the internet in content land, so I'm going to give everybody a chance just to explain where people may know them. So, Moon, starting with you, last time you were on the show, I think you were starting to dabble in YouTube a little bit. That was a little while ago now. So you got some actual good content going up now. So let everyone know.
Well, thank you, Dave. Yeah, I have dove, whatever the past tense is. pretty fully into YouTube over the past year, and I've kind of settled into a niche where I make long plays of hard action games played on their highest difficulty from start to finish with no edits, with the idea being that if my bumbling ass can get through these games, then anyone watching can too. So, if you want some kind of confidence booster to play hard games, or if you just want kind of a service to see what a game is like at its absolute top tier setting, then, I think my channel, which is Stylish Moonborn, you can find that at SSS_Moonborn. Moonborn has an E at the end. And, you can find my content there.
Yeah, and just give people an idea, what kind of games have you done those long plays about?
It's mostly stylish action games, things like Bayonetta, but I've been branching out a little bit lately. I actually just put out a one for Mamadora Reverie Under the Moonlight, which is a fairly popular indie Metroidvania that actually does support some high-level, difficulty in play. There's a long play I just put out for that with flawless bosses on the hardest difficulty, and that was a bit of a bear to record, but I'm real happy with the results, so I'd love it if you checked it out.
Yeah. My hat goes off to you, dude. I couldn't get more than 25 minutes into that game. So,
well, it sounds like you are the prime customer to watch that video and have your confidence picked up.
I am the target audience. Yeah. So, everyone who wants to see some high level action game long plays can check out Moonborn's YouTube channel. Next up, Alex, what is Please Don't Cast?
It's a podcast I've been doing with a couple of my friends for a few years now. Essentially, we do a different topic every week, so it's impossible to market to anyone because one week we're making chocolate mousse, the next week we're talking about a video game or watching a movie.
Right.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun, but it's mostly for us. Of course, we'd be happy if anybody listened, but yeah.
Fair enough. I mean, I like chocolate mousse. I like video games. Sounds good to me.
Yeah.
And last but not least, Nave, you are returning. You've been on the show before. You're on my other show, Top 3. But Gaming Together is a podcast I listen to all the time. So let my people know again what you guys do over there.
We like to play cooperative games and just multiplayer in general and just talk crap about it. We just recently did a puzzle game that made us really want to jump through our TVs and kill each other because we are both very mean. But we just love having a chance to hang out and shoot the shit and just party as much as we can. And that's what we do over there.
Yeah, I think that describes the vibe on Gaming Together pretty well.
Sounds fun.
Shooting the shit, partying, chaos ensues in conversation. Philip desperately tries to keep it on track. It's very funny to me. So good
it was
stuff.
Horrible. We had like a 40-minute conversation on anime just randomly in the middle of our review. So I'm sure the company that gave us the review copies didn't appreciate that.
Oh, no. Cool. So thank you guys all for joining me. Everyone who's interested in those podcast YouTube channel can check down in the show notes for links to all of those things so that you don't have to try and remember names and social media handles and stuff. Got you covered. So again, thank you all for joining me. Let's get into talking about emergent gameplay. And first things first, I want to set up. So Webster's Dictionary defines emergent gameplay. No, actually, Wikipedia defines emergent gameplay as complex situations in video games that come from simple gameplay mechanics interacting, and they create unique and complex situations and solutions to problems. And if that is a bit too wordy, just imagine, I'm going to use Breath of the Wild as an example right here. Breath of the Wild is a game that's made of tons and tons of simple rules for the objects, the weather, all of that stuff. So there's a rule where if you have a metal weapon and it's storming outside, lightning will strike the metal weapon. And there's a rule where if an enemy doesn't have a weapon, it will try to pick the nearest one up. So if it's raining and you drop your metal weapon, the enemy will pick it up and probably get hit by lightning. And that is emergent gameplay. They often feel like solutions where you think that you're getting one over on the developers, like they didn't plan for you to do that, when I feel like Nintendo probably knew this was going to happen and they're just cool with it. A lot of these games are built to let you express yourself in a lot of ways. So I don't know about you all, but I was thinking about this as I did some games for the podcast recently that like really emphasize emergent gameplay. Like I did 2 episodes about Prey and Prey Moon Crash. And this feels like the secret sauce to me that really will put a game over the edge into like this like very special zone. And all 3 of you wanted to come on this podcast and talk about it. So I assume you feel the same way, right?
Yeah, I love the idea of being able to like, you're feeling like you're getting away with something. It's one of the best feelings in games to be able to sneak up to somewhere you're not supposed to, or I see this thing, I really want to get on top of it. I'm going to stack up 30 boxes just to do it. It's great.
I just like hanging out with the boys.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. So Nave's here regardless of the topic.
I would add also to how I feel about emergent gameplay on top of what Dave already said, was that I feel that the best emergent gameplay comes in games where the developers, not only did they necessarily think of these things, but also they were brave enough to kind of let the unknown happen to a degree. Mm-hmm. And that you can kind of feel that feeling of trust in certain games. You can feel it in Breath of the Wild. You can feel it in games I'm sure we're all going to talk about today. Yeah. And, just being able to like having a developer trust you enough to just let you just go ape shit. Like trusting a gamer. Imagine trusting a gamer. That's
They're
what
not going to fail you back to the
these
checkpoint.
Games are doing. And that is bravery beyond what I can imagine personally.
Yeah, exactly. That not only are they're trusting you, and the best kinds is when you come up with something that like they clearly didn't want you to do that, but they don't care because that's the game that they made. And if you figured out something that's super creative, then cool, they're going to let you do that. And the big example of this is before we get into talking about like specific games and like kind of digging in a little bit, there's a famous story about the game Deus Ex, the original Deus Ex game, where
Glad you're bringing this up.
yeah, people found out that you could throw mines on the walls, and there was a collision issue with your character and the mines, where you could stick a mine on the wall and then jump on top of it, and then you could pick up another mine, stick it a little bit above you, jump on top of that, and that breaks the game wide open. You can climb over any wall if you have two
slowly
mines.
ladder yourself up.
Yeah, exactly. And there was an interview with the director where he was like, yeah, players started doing this, and we were like, that's cool. We're just going to let them do that. They didn't try and like, well, this was, I don't know, could you even patch games in the year 2000 or something like that? But the key thing was that they saw that and they were like, we did not think you could do that, and we didn't think people would find that, and we're totally cool with it. That's awesome.
Yeah, that kind of stuff goes hand in hand with like speedrunning communities. One of my favorite things on YouTube is watching developers react to speedruns. And like there's ones about Portal and stuff like that. And they're just like, I have no idea how he shot through that wall. I don't know what he's doing. Why does he keep saving? What is that now? Why is he jumping and he's going so fast? I don't get it. And I'm just like, yeah, this is good.
There's a good series that I think IGN does actually, where they have game developers watch like world record speedruns and just be like, what the fuck? I had no idea that this was even possible in the game that I spent thousands of hours making. I thought I knew this game. Apparently I didn't. And it's really cool. So one other thing to note, and this might come up a little bit, is that I think it's like a kind of sub area, or like at least brother and sister type relationship between emergent gameplay and emergent narrative, where instead of gameplay mechanics, it's kind of narrative building mechanics. Storytelling rules work together to create narrative content. That the things that happen might be planned and programmed, but the order that they happen, the way that they interact with each other, can feel totally random and unique to what you're doing. So stuff like Dwarf Fortress, which I want to try, or Crusader Kings, which I also want to try, because the stories people tell about the shit that happens in those games is wild.
Yeah. I've only dabbled in Crusader Kings, but it is incredibly funny to romance the Pope and then have 5 illegitimate children with him.
If that's not what you want out of video games, what are we even doing here? So we've all brought a couple of games to this episode that kind of showcase emergent gameplay and how this can create such memorable experiences and such just awesome like moments where you feel like you figured something out that you weren't supposed to figure out, or you solved a problem in a way that no one else is going to solve that problem. And like I said, this is like the secret sauce that kind of makes some games that, well, I'll just use Breath of the Wild. I'll continue with that because I'm playing it right now. It's going to be an episode of the podcast in a couple of months, and I'm playing it right now. And not to spoil my like full opinion on it, but I think it's a game that's like way better than the sum of its parts. Like the individual mechanic things in Breath of the Wild are mostly like fine or not great in my opinion, but the emergent gameplay that comes from all of these things interacting with each other makes Breath of the Wild like one of my favorite gaming experiences ever because of the creativity that it allows you to play. So have you all played Breath of the Wild?
Yep.
Absolutely.
Okay, so all three of you. Are you with me here?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, you can do a lot of dumb shit with this game.
Yeah. And it's no more apparent than when you go on YouTube and like watch people who like have mastered all of this stuff. And you thought that you played the game for hundreds of hours, right? You thought you played the game, knew everything that you could do. No, you didn't, because people who are really good at Breath of the Wild are wildly creative with how they, you use the stasis Sheikah Slate thing. You can combine that with other like weird like glitches or other interactions between weather and stuff like that to, shoot yourself across the map. The speed running in Breath of the Wild uses all of these interactions. It's crazy.
Yeah, being able to like, I'll use stasis on this rock and I'll hit it 1,000,000 times. So it's going to go really fast in this direction. Okay, what if I climb on the rock and then do it? And it's like, oh, that's easy. That's like That's like a 201 level thing, and it works. The game lets you do it. Sometimes it'll kill you because of the way the physics system works, but
Sure.
Other times you'll go really far.
Yeah. And that's just like one, very brief example. I used the example of the lightning earlier, which is always funny if you can get that to play out right. But the reason I actually wanted to do this topic was because I'm playing Breath of the Wild, and I think that the emergent gameplay lifts this game up well beyond like using stasis by itself. Not super fun by itself. You're rarely just doing that, but like it's fine. Using magnesis by itself, it's fine. The combat it's fine. It's okay. But when all of these things mix together and they do interact with each other, it's awesome, and it's really hard to top. So that's Breath of the Wild. Alex, what did you bring to the emergent gameplay talk here?
All right. Well, you touched on it a little bit earlier with that famous Deus Ex story, but this is one of my favorite games ever, the original Deus Ex. It is a game that will say yes to any and all of your dumbest ideas. So we talked about using the LAMs, the landmines, to climb up walls. An incredible thing that you can do that they let you do. Another one of my favorite things that you can do early on in this game, and that applies throughout this game. Doors generally, unless they're mission specific or whatever, will have hit points, and you can destroy them. So if you have a powerful enough weapon, instead of using 4 lockpicks to open the door, you could simply throw a grenade at it or shoot a rocket launcher at it. So an early game, kind of power move is to pick the GEP gun, the rocket launcher, as your starting weapon, and use it to open doors. And then kind of a knock-on effect of that. In the first level, there is a sunken tanker off the coast of Liberty Island. And there is a locked hatch that you have to swim underneath the water and then use a lockpick on to open up. If you take a TNT crate, throw it in the water, and then shoot it, you'll blow that hatch right off and you can swim right in.
That's awesome.
And Deus Ex has a swimming skill. It is kind of a joke in the community generally. But if you have swimming leveled up, you could feasibly stay underwater long enough to lockpick that. But you just throw that TNT in there and you can swim right under.
And that's the stuff. And those examples are like some of many, many examples in Deus Ex. I love that game too, the original one.
It rolls.
Yeah. Just because, and it's further seen. I mentioned Prey and Prey Moon Crash earlier. Those are very similar in how if you think of a creative way to get past something, I can't really recall a time where the game is like, no, you can't do that. It doesn't work. Like
I feel like Prey specifically kind of built in the classic story about climbing up walls with mines, because they give you a gun that just lets you make platforms.
Yeah, exactly. So, another game might be like, it might be systems mixing too, but what if Deus Ex was like, no, TNT doesn't work in the water. If you throw it in there, it's not supposed to be in the water, so it's going to sink down to the bottom and out of the level or something.
Yeah, and you can't blow it up. Yeah.
Yeah. But no, Deus Ex is like, no, cool. You thought to do that? Cool.
Sure. Another thing that I love about Deus Ex and a lot of the immersive sims that would come later is that if you know the key code for something, like say you've played the game before, or you look up a game fact, you can just enter the code and open the door. Yeah. And they don't you need to get the mission item, you need to your character has to find it. No, just type the code in.
Yeah. And that code 0451 has become synonymous with the genre. And I feel like if I play a game now and I come to the first safe or the first, keypad or whatever, if I try that code, I'm either going to get a trophy for it or a little Easter egg from the developers or something like that. So you always got to give that a try.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So yeah, Deus Ex it was definitely one I was thinking of when I was coming up with this too. So great call there. Moon, I know that you've played a game recently that is full of emergent gameplay. So enlighten us.
Oh, I wouldn't know how you know that, but Yeah, so I guess the first game I want to talk about is a game called Rain World. And just to give people a brief overview, Rain World is a kind of it's kind of a big 2D exploratory platformer. It's kind of like a Metroidvania, but not quite, where, you play as a small creature trying to survive near the bottom of a food chain in a kind of industrial post-apocalypse. Mm-hmm. And the thing that makes the game so interesting is that when the developers made it, the thing they care about more than anything else in the game is creating these like kind of complex AI systems for all the creatures, and like these kind of proc gen elements for like, events that happen in the world and so on, and just kind of like letting them stretch as much as possible with making as few like safeguards as possible to prevent like, quote, bad things from happening. Mm-hmm. And the result is a game that can be extremely infuriating, extremely rewarding. It can feel unfair as fuck. Like you will also have moments where you snap victory out of the jaws of defeat at the last moment, and where you snatch defeat out of the jaws of victory. Little of each. And it's just kind of fascinating because like I don't think there is a single, because that game is full of like, again, like, it's full of really simple systems, like for like, platforming and the way items interact and the way creatures. Well, okay, I was about to say the way the creatures interact with you is simple, but that's not true. The AI is designed to like kind of like have like a life of its own in a way. But like, I don't think there is a single like sole mechanic or element of that game that, despite how simple it is, can be described as like being like a one-trick pony. Everything has multiple uses. Like whether it's like your basic platforming or even like spears. Like you can use spears to defend yourself. You can use spears to embed into walls and climb up to places you're not supposed to. Of course, like every game like this, there was a very early kind of exploit discovered where you could like finish the game in something like half an hour. It wouldn't be half an hour if you or I did it. Like I actually did this route recently. It took me 6 hours, but there is a very quick route you can take where theoretically, if you're good enough at the game, you could beat the game in like half an hour. And it's not all intentional because, without getting into spoilers, the way the game is designed, like there's no real like hard direction of where you're supposed to go, but you are kind of like meant to sort of eventually go to one place to get the only piece of player progression that's in the game, and then kind of make your way to the ending. Whereas like there was kind of an exploit involving certain items and one of the last rooms in the game that allowed you to kind of like just basically circumvent like the rules of the game and actually get to the end immediately. Mm-hmm. And it's just a wild game. Like I don't want to turn this into the Rain World podcast, so I'm not going to like get fully into like, what makes it so special, but it's a game all about interactions where the developers were absolutely not afraid to just kind of like let the chips fall where they may. And They weren't even afraid to like turn people away. But some people turn away and say this is bullshit. And rightfully so sometimes, because you will die sometimes for reasons that are absolute garbage. But, it's kind of in service to all these crazy stories, interactions you can have in the world with other creatures.
Yeah, so like, I mean, we've talked about Rain World a bunch. Other people in the Discord server have played it, and it seems to me, like you said, that the developers just kind of set up these behaviors or these AI to control the creatures and just kind of been like, this is a predator, this is how it's going to act sometimes. It might act differently sometimes. And they just put it out there and just let it work. And it seems to me like a simulation of some kind that you're controlling your character in, right? And so all those interactions lead to everyone, posting clips of, things that happen to them that feel unique, which seems very, very cool. It seems like a game that's like, it's a different type of game that seems like it's built on emergent gameplay as opposed to a Prey or a Deus Ex,
Yeah, just to give you like one example of like the kind of like crazy things that can happen, there is one like very common enemy in the game. The most common enemy in the game, they're kind of these large lizards or salamanders or whatever, whatever they are, however big your little slug cat character is, like these things are bigger than you, right? They're like, roughly twice your size or whatever. They're predators. Like, one touch, you get anywhere close to their mouths and it's over. Like, so, basically everything in this game kills you in one hit, essentially. And like, those are the predators. Those are the basic enemies. You go through the game and you are always either evading them, or once you get brave and stupid enough, like I am, especially that last part, you can start like actually like fighting them in some way and actually like, killing them if you're clever enough and know the systems and have your resources in order. But there is like a scenario that I never ever heard of where apparently if you save a lizard from a larger predator, that lizard can become your friend. And like, and not only can it like become your friend, like it'll follow you around, it'll protect you. Like this line in the game makes literally no effort to tell you, and you have no reason to assume that would be the case, but it totally happens. Like the AI of this lizard is complex enough that if something tries to kill it and then you save it, it's smart enough to realize that, oh, hey, this is a buddy, this is a friend. I'm going to protect this small, tasty looking creature for a little bit. Like there's even unique like, because there's like whenever you rest, there's like unique artwork you see. There's even like unique artwork for the lizard sleeping with you when
nice.
Yeah, it's like, and that's just one of like I just want to say one thing like that because there are so many multitudes upon multitudes of things that can happen in that game that you never know about unless you got super lucky or you read about it, basically.
Oh yeah, that's a good point to keep in mind when we're talking about this. I feel like a lot of these games that are built on emergent gameplay, when you get toward the end, you really feel like you know how to work with these systems that are working together. Like late game in Breath of the Wild, you've tried a bunch of tricks, you've learned a bunch of tricks. Immersive Sims, I mean, you're a master of your toolkit in those games. So I think that is something to keep in mind. Nave, what do you got?
All right, well, I'm gonna be honest right up front. I came in here, I was like, emergent gameplay. Yep, I know what that is. I'm pretty sure. Gonna not do any research. Gonna just wing it right at the end, right before we start recording. And then once you started talking about the differences between emergent narrative and emergent gameplay, I was like, oh no, I have to do some research real quick because I don't know what the hell he's talking about.
Well, emergent narrative also counts. I mean, it's like I said, they're brother and sister.
Oh no, it's too late. I already called the audibles. I already changed my list up.
All right, let's go.
It's way too late. Well, the first one's going to be the same, and I'm going to take a side street. I'm going to walk away from video games for a moment, and I want to talk about tabletop. I want to talk about Magic the Gathering. Specifically, I want to talk about Commander, Elder Dragon Highlander, 4-player multiplayer. This kind of gameplay has so much shenanigans, especially whenever you start incorporating older cards that were not designed to have 4 people in the single game, that things just get so wonky and catawampus. I'm telling you, it's insanity. And I don't know how much you guys know about card games, but Magic the Gathering's like, it's a relatively simple game, relatively simple rules. This one's the only one that didn't really change from my list because I was like, well, all this stuff, it relates to Magic the Gathering as well, especially in Commander, because whenever you have 4 different board states seeing each other and interacting with each other in specific ways, things get incredibly complex and insane. And I had this in here for emergent narrative because there's so many different hilarious storylines that go along with people, like so many war stories and things that you can tell. So many times that you chaos warped a horrible thing and then they revealed off the top of their deck a way worse thing, and you're just like, well, I guess we lose harder. I'm sorry, guys, I tried. You know what I mean? And it's like, but the gameplay itself, the cogs. You start to see the matrix after a little while, after playing this game, because the way things interact, you need somebody around that deeply has intricate knowledge of exactly what the steps are, where the steps end, what happens, how the stack works. God, the stack. Please, someone kill me when that starts coming up. I absolutely love playing Commander. My Commander playing has greatly suffered because of how deeply I fell in love with podcasting. So I just needed to take a moment and just to gush about how much I love this format.
Right on.
Oh yeah.
Have any of you played Magic? I've never played.
Nope, never once.
Maybe once. I remember literally nothing about it. It was such a very long time ago.
Gotcha.
I love to hear about it, though.
Yeah. Well, I guess we call the podcast now. That's over.
I messed up. I'm sorry.
No. The thing that like I realized as I was getting ready for this episode is that I play a shitload of video games, but I don't play tabletop games, and I like card video games, but I don't play card games in the physical world. So this is a really common thing in tabletop and card games, though, too, emergent gameplay, because you have a hard set of rules. You can, especially in tabletop games, you can use the rules to create whatever type of creative solutions you want to try, as long as it flies, I guess. I'm going out of my comfort zone here, but you guys like have played tabletop too. You can kind of back me up on this.
Absolutely. Nobody plays Monopoly or Uno correctly. Like absolutely nobody. You know how many videos I've seen online of someone playing a draw 4 that and then going red, but they have red cards in their hand. You're supposed to call them out on that. If you play a draw 4 and you call a color that you already have in your hand, you're supposed to draw 6 or 7 or something like ridiculous like that. That's a rule.
But we make our own rules.
Yeah, when it comes to card and board games, I actually am the rules guy a little bit.
Okay.
I have played Monopoly by the rules.
Very hard.
Yeah, you can come into some fun stories, especially with more freeform tabletop games.
Yeah, I guess like my tabletop experience is very limited, but I used to play a bit of Fate. And I just don't know enough about those games, and I'm not a super creative person in those situations. So I'm very like, I'll follow the rules too. And like, I will run up and kick that person because I have a skill that says I kick people, stuff like that. But you can go super wild within those. So, good. I'm glad we got an example from like I said, the physical world. So that's good.
Meat space.
Yeah. Alex, I think you and I can kind of tag team a game I want to talk about, which is the new Hitman
absolutely.
games.
Yep.
So the Hitman games, if you haven't played them, first of all, I have 2 episodes on Hitman 1 and Hitman 2. It's like 6 hours of podcast.
Great games.
Because there's so many stories and unique ways that you killed your targets to talk about that me and my guest Scott on both episodes could not stop talking. So if you haven't played, those games are kind of like we've been talking about. It's a stealth game on its face, but it's not really a game where you're hiding in the shadows. You're hiding in plain sight using a bunch of gameplay systems, like the way disguises work and the way guards have routes and the way these levels are kind of like these clockwork puzzles more than like video game levels with static people and stuff like that. And once you learn how all of those things work, the game is your oyster. You can do whatever the hell you want. The game pretty much permits you as long as you understand how things interact.
Yeah, absolutely. I love a lot of the maps are like designated certain areas. Like, oh, you can be on the floor at a party as anybody, but you can't be backstage at a party as anybody. So you got to find a disguise to, you got to be the waiter or you got to be the security guy. Maybe that means you can go upstairs. All that stuff is systems driven and really freeform.
Yeah.
I'm the guy that kills all the guards and then puts them all naked into a bathroom and lures all the other guards by the giant pile of bodies.
There's something wrong with the toilet.
Fix it.
We talked about speedruns earlier. My mind immediately jumped to Hitman speedruns, which are fucking wild. If anyone has seen them, because these games are so systems driven that the speedrunners don't often, like Hitman 3, I guess they use a bit of glitching, but the ones from Hitman 1 and 2 that I've seen don't use glitches per se. They are just masters of the systems. And they say, like, if you wait in the cutscene 2 seconds, the guard will move over here. And then you shoot this wall twice to get the guard's attention. This is all predictable behavior. And then you can, it gets crazy from there. And so you're watching this and it's like this cold, precise sequence of actions. Whereas a lot of speedruns are just like, I like Dark Souls and stuff, and those speedruns are just, you run past everything, you fight the boss, you get a glitch, and then the game's over, stuff like that. So
that actually gets into one of my stories that I have for Hitman.
yeah.
I think this might be the Paris level, or it might be a different level where they have like one of the targets is out kind of on the floor, and the second target is up in like a secret meeting. This target is having like, kind of an Illuminati style, like secret auction with only the like upper crust of people. You can, I like did one of the kind of mission stories that they have where it's like, kind of a guided way to get up to, being where the target is. I was disguised as someone sitting in at the secret meeting. And on my first run of this, or on this particular run of this, I wasn't really sure how to get the target alone. Now, usually a lot of these will just give you a perfect opportunity to push them off a ledge or something. This one, I'm like, okay, I'm in a room, but there's like at least 10 other people here. So what do I do to kill this lady? And I'm like, all right, I'll do this. I brought a coin with me. And coins are great distractions in Hitman. You can basically throw them at a wall and everyone on Earth will go and look and say, what's that?
Not unlike real life.
It's that video of, what is it, Lethal Weapon, where he's in the middle of the gunfight and then he bends down and picks up the quarter.
Yeah.
So I decided to get up from my seat at the meeting, turn around, throw a coin at the wall, and then while everyone looked to the right, I went over to the left, shot the lady, and then just left the room. By the time they all picked up the coin and turned around, I was out of there.
That is a really simple example, but those are systems that the game has taught you, and it rewards your creativity of being like, you know what? I bet everyone in here would freak out if I threw a coin, and we'll just try that.
Yeah, just getting everyone to turn their attention for about a half second was enough to get away with murder. Yeah.
And the game is just constantly putting you in situations like, especially if you don't follow the mission stories that kind of set you up for easy kills, the game is constantly setting you up in situations where you need to problem solve using what you know about how people react to things and how objects work. What happens if I throw this at a wall? Is it going to explode? Is it going to, get people's attention? You're constantly making those decisions based on how things interact, and it's super cool. The one from Hitman that I thought of, and I don't know, this might be like a thing that only Hitman fans know, or it's transcended it, I don't know, but the homing briefcase is an interaction of
baby.
a couple of systems that are not, it's not supposed to work out this way, but because the systems and the people's behavior works out, it works. So there's a target in the last DLC level in Hitman 2. And when you throw things in Hitman, they kind of, you lock aim and then you throw them, you'll never miss, basically. Even if the person starts walking, you'll never miss. Well, this person doesn't start walking. He gets on a jet ski and starts riding away. So if you throw the briefcase before he's like, full speed speeding away from you, the briefcase will home in and chase him down as he jet skis around. And it's very funny. One of the, another thing, they could have patched that out if they're like, oh, we don't want you to do that. But they're like, no, fuck it. That's funny. We're keeping that.
Yeah, it's incredibly good. It's an interesting thing because like from a gameplay design perspective, it's like, oh, well, okay, if you decide you want to throw this at this guy, it would feel bad if it randomly missed. So let's make it not miss. And then that's like just a funny knock-on effect from that. And it rules.
Right. Exactly. You're playing as the world's, best assassin. Why would you miss if you're throwing a screwdriver at somebody? He wouldn't miss. So
one other quick point on Hitman. The things, so there are a lot of optional challenges in all these games because they want you to replay these levels over and over and over again and really get a feel for how the systems interact, what the guard patterns are like, where the targets like to go. Yeah. One of the ultimate expressions of that are they have suit only challenges where you can't disguise, which is real sicko shit. I'm not too into that. But they have sniper challenges where getting the specific targets into line of sight to snipe them is actually tricky, and you really need to know where their patrol routes are or like kind of which levers to turn in the system to get people where you need them to be. One of my favorite examples is in Hitman 2. there is a Vermont suburb level called Whittleton Creek. And it's just kind of like a couple blocks of a neighborhood. And there are 2 targets you have to kill. If you do a certain setup of stuff, you can get both of them to meet up together. And it's like, oh, Yahtzee, I've got them in the same place. But I also need you, for one of these challenges, completely optional, you have a challenge to snipe them both from a treehouse in the backyard. So it's like, well, now I have to figure out how to get these 2 near enough to each other where I can see them from this one specific spot. And it's just a ton of, like, it's a lot of absolute nonsense you have to get that together, but it rules.
Yeah, those sniping challenges really do require you to know not only where people are going to be and where they're going to move to, but how they're going to react to anything you can do. Because you, unlike the regular challenges, you can't just go choke them out and take their clothes. You have to it's like, if I shoot this wall, where are they going to go after that? And you can manipulate people like that. So
it's like
again,
a real Rube Goldberg machine of, if I do this, then maybe they'll do this.
Yeah. And that's what Hitman is, baby. I fucking love it.
Yeah.
So, Moon, what other game did you want to talk about for this?
So the next game I want to talk about is actually the Neo series, the Team Ninja Souls-like action RPGs. For those unfamiliar, Neo is it's kind of like Dark Souls, but it's also kind of like a character action game rolled into one. It's by the people who made the reboot Ninja Gaiden games, so you can imagine the kind of over-the-top combat that comes with. But because it's also an RPG, they treat their RPG systems as maximally as they do their action combat systems. So it is just systems upon systems upon systems. It's one of the kinds of games I affectionately call a kitchen sink game, just in terms of how many systems there are. Like, if you want to juxtapose it with Dark Souls, whereas like Dark Souls will have like a million different systems, but it'll hide all but a few of them from you, and you'll never know about 90% of them unless you look them up or whatever. Neo instead takes every single one of those systems, puts them on Front Street, briefly tutorializes you on all of them, and says, okay, now have fun, knock yourself out. Yeah. And of course, the result of that is you can kind of do crazy things both with your build and like the kind of like different things you can accomplish in combat. Now, one thing about the first Neo, I much prefer Neo 2, but I do like the original Neo, but one thing about the first Neo that I personally, have an issue with is that the leveling curve is kind of wonky. So the way it's set up is that even if you do all the missions, play through everything, if you're not grinding some of the older missions over and over and over again, the leveling curve will absolutely outpace you in a pretty dramatic way. And so I got to a point where I was in the second to last mission of the second to last mission of the last expansion, right? Like there's 3 DLCs, and I was trying to play through it, and I was doing this with I forgot to write it down, but I was doing it with a character that was maybe like 60 levels under leveled or something like that. I was a level 165, and I think you were supposed to be like level 200 something. I don't remember what it was. And you had to fight this boss, this big old demonic bird, like called Anmaraki. And I was just unable to do it. I fought him for maybe 3 hours. I was getting face tanked. I would get hit once or twice generously, and it was just over. I was doing barely any damage. So I'm desperate because I'm like, I am not going to grind for 30 hours or whatever to get myself to where I need to be when I'm this close to the end of the game, right? So I'm furiously Googling. I'm looking for things I can possibly do. Every single strategy I find involves a build I don't have. And that, to be fair, theoretically, if I wanted to quit the mission and then rebuild my character, with respec or whatever, I could have done it. But I didn't feel like doing that. So, there were all these, okay, this requires a ninja build. I'm not going to do that. This requires Omnio Magic. I'm not going to do that. Finally, in my desperation, I find a Reddit post with 2 comments. One of them has a -5 karma and says something like, Well, I just used Suzaku and that melted him really quickly. And naturally, I was so desperate that at this point, I see a heavily downvoted Reddit comment, and I'm like, you are my only hope. And so, and to letting people, what Suzaku is that there is a system in Neo called Guardian Spirits. And Guardian Spirits are kind of these, like, animal spirit familiars that you equip. You start only able to equip one, but eventually you can equip two at a time as you go on. And Suzaku is basically a phoenix. For those unfamiliar with Japanese mythology, it's kind of like a phoenix. It's a firebird, and if you die when Suzaku is fully charged up, then you will automatically resurrect from the dead. And you will, engage kind of a super mode, kind of like if you think of like a super mode like Devil Trigger in Devil May Cry, or like Rage mode in God of War or whatever. It's basically one of those, right? Uh-huh. And so what the strategy involved was setting Suzaku up with a perk so that when you were in low health, your super meter would slowly recharge. And on top of that, the bird I was fighting, on Meraki, apparently takes tons and tons of fire damage from this bird when it's activated. So what I ended up doing was I equipped it, I went into the arena, I activated the, Suzaku so I could, do tons of damage with fire. But at the level I was doing tons of damage to him, but that only gets him to about just under half health, right? So that kind of sets me in a scenario where, I can't do any more damage to him. So what I ended up doing was, before I entered the fight, I would intentionally damage myself down to almost no health with another enemy. And then I would go in, I would use Suzaku, I would, wreck like on Meraki down to like, I don't know, maybe like 30-40% health with one use. And then I would spend 3.5 minutes running like mad, just trying not to die with low health while my super meter is like slowly recharging. Like, because, that's how the system works. There are other ways I could have used to recharge it, but I was out, so I couldn't do it. That's another system that you can engage with. You can actually use little consumables you can use the equivalent of Dark Souls, Hard Soul consumables to quickly refill your gauge, but I didn't have those. And eventually I got it down and I beat the boss. And there is no other way, like with my build, how underleveled I was. Like, oh, that's not true. There were definitely other ways. Like that would be a point against the Emergent gameplay, right? Like there were definitely other ways, but it was like the craziest, stupidest, and most min-maximalist thing I'd ever done in a video game, I think, in 28 years of playing video games now. All just because of the way these systems interacted. And play Neo. If you don't want to play Neo 2. Neo 2 solves the issues I mentioned with it, but really fun action RPGs if you're down for that.
Or if you don't want to play Neo 2, play Stranger of Paradise.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Don't get me started on Stranger.
But
I don't know. I hear that one's just a little bit too chaotic.
Yeah, it's a little bit too much chaos.
Not enough chaos.
When you said Neo or when I saw Neo in the notes, I wondered like where are we going with this? But you're right. Neo has a million fucking mechanical systems in there. So
yeah, there's a lot on it.
Yeah, finding ways to make them interact in your favor in ways that were not so predictable is very easy to see now. So you got me thinking about boss cheeses, and like other than cheeses where you get the boss to like clip out of the room or something like that, I feel like those are all emergent in some way,
Yeah.
Yep.
Definitely.
You just brought back all these memories of me booting up Neo and having like just hundreds of text boxes. Like, you got your stances, you got all your weapons, you got your secondary weapons, you've got magic, you've got ninjutsu, you've got guardian spirits. And I'm like, oh, how do I jump? Like, let's
for sure. Like, I get so confused when systems get complex too fast, and I just have the monkey with the symbols going on.
Yeah.
I'm like, just give me the biggest stick I could bonk somebody with, please.
What you want, my friend, is a spear in high stance, and with a particular skill set, so you could do light, heavy over and over and over again and perma-stun any human enemy. You'll thank me later.
There you go.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
The humans are the ones I want to stun the most.
Yep.
So that is Neo. Nave, what else did you bring?
So I'm going to talk about Shadow of Mordor.
Yeah.
Ooh.
This game got some very silly mechanics going on, and it's called the Nemesis system.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably the most emergent ass gameplay ass system that's ever existed in a video game, I think.
It's a system built to create emergent stories, basically.
Absolutely. And the first couple of times that you experience this system working in full effect, it's usually magical, especially if you've been gaming for like around as long as I have, where it's just impossible to describe how silly it is when you're in the middle of fighting somebody. And you're in the middle of fighting like a horde of enemies, and then suddenly a general shows up, starts talking shit to you, and then another general shows up, instantly kills him, and then he's like, hey, how about like you don't kill me? Is that like cool if we just don't fight? And you're like, okay, yeah, sure, you're my friend now, and I'm gonna help you become the general. It's like there's so many silly things that happen, like, or someone saves your life, or like you get sniped by somebody when you're about to die and they become a general and they remember you whenever you see them next. Or how about whenever you kill someone but they come back and they have like a metal face and they're like, you thought you killed me, well, I've got some news for you, buddy. And then you guys get into another fight. It's so interesting and dynamic, and I don't know, I really love this stuff.
I do like that they always cut a wrestling promo whenever if they remember you, they're like, "I'll see you tomorrow night at Super Slam."
Yeah. Oh yeah, and then you hear the glass breaking.
You and me, we're gonna meet at the foot of Mount Doom tomorrow night.
'Cause Stone Cold said so.
Yeah, that's a great example.
Yeah, I haven't played that, but I've just, I mean, it wasn't on my list because I haven't played it, so it didn't immediately come to mind. But as soon as I saw it in the notes, I was like, yeah, that's like they basically designed a game for this. This is the point of that game.
It's really fun. It's so fun. Like that just in itself would be a game without any of the story, none of the Lord of the Rings shit. I have no idea what's going on in Lord of the Rings. I know the Smeagol guy, that guy shows up and he's your buddy, or maybe he's not. I don't remember. But the whole Nemesis system is insane. I mean, it's no wonder they decided to copyright it, but that really sucks because that needs to be in more games.
That is really shitty. I forgot about that.
Yeah, that's right.
Awful. What do you guys say we go lightning round through the rest of the examples we brought? We touched on Hitman. I talked about Breath of the Wild earlier. The other one that I brought is Red Dead Redemption 2, game that really just feels like a living world. And living worlds have people that go and do stuff, and they have trains that run on schedule, and all of these things that are going on. And anytime any of those things intersect and interact with each other, it's memorable and funny. So Red Dead Redemption 2. Alex, what else did you bring?
So I have a little story about the game Dusk. This is an old school, people call them boomer shooters now, but a kind of Quake-like retro revival FPS game. Mm-hmm. It doesn't have a ton of systems. It's not a kind of game that you'd really think of when you think of this stuff. But there's like one interaction that I just love. So there are buttons that you can press to interact with, to open things in levels, like buttons work in video games.
Yes.
Except in Dusk, you can shoot them. It's like, oh, okay, cool. So like, they build a couple levels around, oh, you can see the button, but you can't get to it. Oh, I'll shoot it. They teach you that. Mm-hmm. There's a weapon there's a crossbow weapon that fires like spectral arrows, and these arrows can penetrate through enemies. They teach you that. I don't remember if they explicitly teach you this, but it can also shoot through walls.
Nice.
So if you know a button is on the other side of a wall, you can shoot the crossbow through it to activate it. So some high-level speedrun tech for this game is I have the crossbow. I know there's a button on the other side of the map. I'll just shoot it through all the way through the wall and get to the end of the level.
That's
incredibly
awesome.
Cool. Yeah.
That reminds me of the crossbow in Prey, but it's foam bolts.
Oh yeah, you can shoot buttons with that too. Yeah, that's a great idea. Yeah.
Yeah, how that weapon, when you first pick it up, seems totally useless because you're firing Nerf darts at aliens. But what you don't realize is that those things have a way to interact with touchscreens. And if you can't reach a computer screen, you can shoot it with the crossbow. It'll work just the same. So good pull. Yeah.
Yeah, if we have time for it, I have one more small Deus Ex thing I forgot to mention.
Oh, yeah, sure, of course.
You can completely skip the entire first level of the game by throwing a smoke grenade at the side of UNATCO headquarters. And that works, or a gas grenade. That works because when enemies or even your allies enter a panic state, they can open any door. There's no restriction on that at all. So you throw a gas grenade at the side of UNATCO. It hits the receptionist. He gets scared and he runs out the door, which happens to be the unopenable door where you need to go after you beat the mission.
Oh, nice.
So you can just go right into UNATCO and you're done. And the game accounts for that. They think you beat the whole mission.
Nice.
It's like in Far Cry 4, where at the very beginning of the game, the main boss guy, Min, is like, hey, you sit here and wait, and I'll be back in like a couple minutes. Just don't move. And he goes off to do horrible, government dude things. And if you sit there and wait, he comes back and he's like, oh, thanks for waiting. I'm going to get you in this helicopter and you're going to get the fuck out of here. And then the credits roll.
Oh, that's awesome. Moon, what else did you bring lightning round?
All right, real quick, I brought Hyrule Warriors: Age of Calamity, which I feel is an interesting juxtaposition from Breath of the Wild, since it's a Dynasty Warriors spin-off of that game, right?
Yeah.
And one thing about that game is that it's a little bit more focused on the single mini-boss combat compared to older Dynasty Warriors. And one thing it does is that it brings in the rune system from Breath of the Wild, so like magnesis, stasis, etc. And it kind of bakes those in as kind of these special abilities you can use, and specifically you can use them as kind of like counters against mini bosses, almost like Sekiro in a way, like where it's like, you see the perilous attack and there's a symbol and you gotta do a specific action. The runes in Age of Calamity are similar, except you'll see a symbol for a specific rune like magnesis or stasis that the enemy is weak to in that special attack that you can use on them. However, one interesting wrinkle is that the character of Zelda in that game, she actually uses the Sheikah Slate as her main weapon, and the result is that her attacks are just this crazy flurry of rune attacks as kind of her basic light and heavy attacks that she can use, right? So like, you'll do like X, Y, Y, and she'll do a certain combo of like stasis and bombs, or X, Y, X, and she'll do like stasis and bombs and, and cryonesis or whatever. And one thing I was wondering when I was fighting a certain mini boss is, wait, do the rune attacks that show up as part of her regular attack strings, do those follow the same rules as the regular rune attacks? So I memorized when a certain rune comes out during her attack string. In this case, the mini boss is weak to bombs. So I timed my attack string so that when the mini boss is going to use the attack that was weak to the bomb rune from my regular attack string would hit them. And it totally reacts the exact same way as if you used a rune counter. And this is kind of important because not only does that stun the boss, but also it frees me up an actual rune attack I can use during that, because normally they go on cooldown after you use them once. So I could stun him with the bombs and get a bunch of free attacks on him. Then I can use stasis to freeze him for even longer and then attack him even more before he gets his
nice.
And then by the time that's done, the cooldown is done again, and then I can use the bomb counter again, because the first thing he does when he wakes up is use another attack that's weak to the bomb counter. So like I'm tripling my DPS potential just because of this really weird interaction they left in. So
hell yeah. I did not expect to have a Hyrule Warriors come up in the Emergent gameplay discussion, but here we are. And last but not least, Nave.
I want to talk about Donkey Kong 64 because the DK rap really makes gameplay emerge from my pants, if you know what I'm saying. No, I want to talk about Left 4 Dead. Left 4 Dead 2 as well. Good idea. Speaking of games that were made for emergent gameplay, emergent narrative, this game literally has a system built in called the Director, which moves around enemy spawns, it moves around waves of enemies, it moves around item spawns, it changes where your characters respawn if they go down. It changes everything about every single level, which gives you almost infinite replayability, even though the levels themselves don't change very much. So you get into some very specific and chaotic situations, not even to mention if you play in the 4v4 multiplayer where 4 people play infected zombies and try to kill you. This game is incredible. And everybody knows about it, so I'm not saying anything anyone doesn't know. But I got so many stories about that.
Fair enough. I have not played, so I don't know about it. But again,
good.
Didn't
I'm pointing a gun. I'm pointing a gun at David right now. You play that damn game.
Do what you got to do, man. So we brought a bunch of stuff that we felt like kind of showcased Emergent gameplay and how it can create memorable stories and just memorable experiences playing games in general. I also put the word out to the community to share some games that they felt like highlighted Emergent gameplay. And I'll get us started with Randall, who's a patron of the show. Thank you, Randall. Randall gave Dwarf Fortress and RimWorld as 2 examples. And I haven't played these, but I think they fall on the narrative side of things, because I always hear people talking about the crazy stories from Dwarf Fortress, the crazy stories from RimWorld. So Randall shared a couple, and I'm going to share one of those. Randall says there's endless possibility for emergent narrative. So there we go. The story that Randall shared, I believe it's from RimWorld because he used the word colonists, but one of my pyromaniac colonists locked themselves in my ammo supply closet, bad news, and proceeded to have a mental break, which is apparently things that can happen to your colonists, lit the ammunition on fire. A few short moments later, the closet, the colonist, and most of my base were nothing but dust. And that sounds like a pretty typical story from RimWorld or Dwarf Fortress or Crusader Kings or any of these games that, set up things like this. If any of you all have played these.
Are you sure that isn't just a news story from my hometown? Because that sounds like something that would happen.
That's right. You are from Texas, right?
No, Oklahoma. Even worse.
Oklahoma.
Oh,
okay.
Man, that is
We're
worse.
poor Texas.
So that was Randall.
Yeah, I'll read the next one if that's all right.
Yeah.
Chris says, Doom, which is an interesting... I would not think of Doom when I come to this, but they make a great point. As an example, they say, the exploding barrels. They're not labeled as explosive, but if you shoot the right ones, they explode, which is a great point.
Yeah. And I haven't played Doom. So
I assume,
man. Actually, I don't know if they mean the original or the
I was thinking the original. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I haven't played the original. I played the reboot. But, finding out things that are not explicitly told to you and then using them to your advantage, that's emergent gameplay. Hell yeah. Chris is a patron of the show, so thank you, Chris. Also
thanks,
co-host
Chris.
of a Novel Console podcast.
I was just about to do that. I have that thing in the back of my head whenever I realize someone hasn't been shouted out.
Yeah. So Moon, can you take the next one? I have a feeling that it's serendipitous that you ended up with this one.
Oh, how curious. Soccer, who's also a patron, says, Rain World. Perhaps Moon can corroborate. Well, you might say I've done that, wouldn't you all say? Yeah.
I would say you have.
Yeah.
That was my note, that perhaps you can corroborate, but because I had a feeling you were going to bring Rain World to the episode today, but on the off chance that you didn't, this was going to be your spot. But yeah, Rain World, a game built on it.
Yeah, I will say Soccer has been sharing clips in the Discord of their gameplay. And just like I promised, everyone that I see has me equally using the raffle emoji and the sob emoji in tandem. I feel you, brother. Also, I'm glad you seem to be enjoying the game. Like, it is I'm really happy to see other people discover this game, because it was kind of unfairly maligned on release, and it's been kind of slowly picking up a more positive reputation over the years. But it always makes me happy to see someone else get into it, because it's such a beautiful, gorgeous experience. I've called it religious experience before, and I stand by that.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah, indeed. This is serendipitous that I got this one, because I happen to be the third co-host of Super Podcast Saga. This is from Aaron, and he's talking about Etrian Odyssey. It says, emergent gameplay in a turn-based RPG. In Atrian Odyssey 5, the shaman can use an ability to bless all allies with resistance and to a certain element, and simultaneously bless their weapons with that same element. The fencer has the ability to chain attacks, meaning he will automatically perform a melee attack after an ally uses an attack of a certain element. And with each chain attack he performs, these chain attacks become stronger and stronger. So you could perform a fire blessing on everyone, have one character do a melee attack, Fencer chains that into a fire attack, then your Warlock casts a fire spell, Fencer performs another chain, but stronger, and so forth until the Fencer's turn again. It's the Fencer's turn again. I feel like I just read a spell.
You summoned something. Yeah, exactly.
There we go.
This was cool. I love to see this because when I thought of emergent gameplay, turn-based JRPGs were the last genre that would have come to my mind. But some of them, like Etrian Odyssey, apparently are super systems heavy. So if you figure out how to crack it, then you end up with stuff like this.
Yeah, that's a great point. Thinking of stuff like doing shenanigans with calculators in Final Fantasy Tactics, just like abusing the system to the like biggest extreme possible is great.
Yeah, the one that came to my mind was the kind of I think it's unintended, but the interaction between using Vanish and then Doom in Final Fantasy VI to basically kill anything.
Yeah,
which feels like it's not the way it's supposed to work, but turned out to be one of the best strategies in the game. So thank you, Aaron. The last bit of listener correspondence that we got, to steal a phrase from Kane and Rince because my brain just went empty there, is from the Retrospectives podcast. And they wrote in about Pathologic 2, which they say the survival systems of hunger, exhaustion, infection, and thirst, along with your limited time, combined with randomized inventories for trading and looting and different infected and burnt out districts, all of these like things that you're juggling all the time or constantly adapting to, apparently, create a constant dynamic reevaluation of what you need to prioritize. So it sounds like a game that you are never comfortable with what's going on at all.
Yeah, I love Pathologic 2. It is a great example for this because it's you are constantly having to like act on your feet, and that often means just doing anything you can to eke by, and that is definitely in the spirit of this. That's a great point.
That's awesome. That's one of those games that I keep telling myself the beginning of every year, this is the year I play Pathologic, and it didn't happen last year. We'll see about this year. So thank you to the Retrospectives podcast. I'm not sure which one of you wrote that in, but thank you. And that is all of our community submissions. So thank you all who wrote in. We appreciate that. We love to see that you all value emergent gameplay and have like these, stories and specific examples of things that have happened. So thanks everyone for writing in. And the last thing to do is to kind of do some housekeeping here at the end. And we start this out by just everybody, starting with Moon, let people know, again, what you're doing out there on the internet. And then keep in mind that down in the show notes, there will be links to all your stuff.
All right. As mentioned at the top of the show, you can find me on YouTube at SSS_Moonborn with an E at the end. You can also, where you can find all my long play content and other gaming content. You can also find me on Twitter at the exact same handle at SSS_Moonborn with an E at the end, where I do sometimes post some miscellaneous cool gaming clips that don't make it to YouTube. So maybe follow me there as well. I promise I'll be nice when I feel like it.
Awesome. And if people want to hear more of Moon, like I said, Moon was on a couple episodes of the show in the past talking about Death's Gambit, which is a game that continues to be overlooked. I think everyone should go play. And Bloodborne, a game that is not overlooked, but I think everyone should go play.
So, I agree with both.
Alex, how about you?
All right. So like I said at the top of the show, I do a podcast with my friends. We shorten it to Please Don't Cast, but the long ass name is Please Don't Listen to This. Your Life Depends on It, which is great for pitching the show. But yes. We mostly do it for fun. We cover a different topic every week. We've done all kinds of stuff. We've done plenty of video games. We did Disco Elysium. We've done Death Stranding. We've done a lot of popular games. But we do all kinds of other stuff too. recently we talked about Plato's Allegory of the Cave. We had a beach day. We made our own websites. We played disc golf. We do a ton of weird, random stuff. Mostly just my friends and I hanging out, talking about the thing we did that week. We're always open for suggestions. Scroll through our feed. We've been doing it a couple of years, so we're bound to have done something you like or don't like. So have a look.
Oh yeah.
I suggest that you get me on your show.
Send us an email. We are desperate.
Yeah.
I don't even know how to use an email.
Nave may not know how to use email, but Nave knows how to use a microphone and a podcast hosting app. So let people know, Nave, once again, what's gaming together.
You give me a lot of credit. It's actually Philip that helps me set all this stuff up.
Okay, right, fair enough.
Philip and me, we run Gaming Together, a cooperative podcast. You can find us on Twitter at Game Together Pod, because Gaming Together Pod is too long and Gaming Together was taken. We talk about gaming. We talk about cooperative games. You can find us on Instagram, where we post memes. Usually you see our thumbnails a little bit early, which I put a lot of love and care into. Please go and give my thumbnails a like. And we just joke around on our show.
Yeah, it's a good time. I really enjoy listening. So again, a plug for everyone to check out Moonborn's YouTube channel. Check out Please Don't Cast. I already forgot the real long name of
Please don't
the
listen
cast.
to this. Your life depends on it.
Please don't listen to this. Your life depends on it.
It sounds like a modern anime name.
It's PDYLTTYLDOI for
that
sure.
really rolls off the tongue. Yeah. And to check out Gaming Together. All good stuff. So for me, I would love it if you out there joined our Discord server. We have a great group of people in there chatting about video games, mostly video game stuff, but, talking about movies, talking about TV shows. The Last of Us is going on at the time of recording. By the time you hear this, it's probably over. But come talk about The Last of Us if you want to. Talk about what you're playing. Talk about the show. We have a good time. We'd love to have you. Other ways to support are ways that you can support all podcasts and YouTube channels and stuff like that. It's just by hitting subscribe and telling a friend that you found something that you like and chasing after them as they run away from you for suggesting something to them. And leaving a rating and review is particularly helpful. And if you would like to support monetarily, there is a Patreon page for this show and my other show, which is a top 3 podcast where, like Please Don't Cast, we do top 3 lists every week about random topics, random stuff, right?
Ooh,
We're
fun.
getting into our draft arc on the show. So top 3s are taking a break and now we're drafting stuff. So
I love a draft. That sounds fun.
That's been fun. Yeah. We're having a good time with that. I think that show's a good time. So please check that out if that sounds cool to you. So yeah, that is the end. Thank you, Moonborn. Thank you, Alex. And thank you, Nave. Appreciate you guys.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. This is great.
Yeah, I had a great time. Thanks for having me on again. For some reason.
For some reason. It's a mystery, Moon.
There's something about Dave and me guesting on one of his shows that really pulls out the frantic last minute energy of me, because I'm always having to scramble and figure out what the hell I'm going to talk about.
Are you sure it's my show or it's not just like everyday life?
I'm not sure. I'm blaming you just to keep the pressure off of me. I've got enough problems.
I understand. I'm with you. All right. So again, thank you all for joining. Thank you everybody for listening. Tune in next week for the next game that comes out of the backlog.